Hello, my name's John Evans. Welcome to this short video on how to set up jEdit to work with Topaz. So what we're going to go through in the video is on the screen here. We're going to run through quickly how to install jEdit and get it set up to work effectively with Topaz. We're going to be following the instructions on this web page here. I'll put the link in the comments. We'll go through things relatively quickly because you can follow the detail on this page. I'm going to assume two things. I'm going to assume that you've already have a Topaz folder set up on your computer, and I'm going to assume that you've got Java installed on your computer. So what we'll do is we'll switch to my desktop and then we'll run through the installation together quickly. Okay, so here we are on my desktop. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to Chrome. Let's just do a Google search for jEdit install Durham. Okay, and what we want to do is install jEdit version 5.5. So if we click on that link, we'll go to a web page where all the instructions you can follow to go through this slowly are. We're just going to skip to step 2, and it says here there's a single zip file that we can download, and that contains all of the files that we need to install jEdit. So if we click on that, I'm going to save it to a temporary directory on my computer. Okay, so if I go to that temporary directory, the zip file is in there. Normally I would do extract all to extract those files, but just for speed I've done that already. So we've got a folder called jEdit 55 set up. By double clicking that folder, the important file that we need is this one here, which will install the basic version of jEdit. On your computer you might be able to just double click on that and install it. Because of the security setup at Durham, I have to run it with administrative privileges and give a reason why I'm installing that software. Let me just do that. Okay, so what will happen now is we'll get some questions from jEdit. We want to use English as our default language. We'll click next here. We'll accept the license agreement. You need to install jEdit in a folder where you've got full write privileges. And so for me, the folder I can use conveniently is C:\jEdit. So I'm going to install to that particular directory, and I'll install there even though the folder already exists. I'll accept defaults here, and I'm not going to start the jEdit server every time I restart my computer. On next, and then install OK. Okay, so what happens now is jEdit will go through the normal thing of installing various files onto your computer. It'll depend on your computer how long that takes, but maybe 30 seconds or so. So what I'll do is I'll speed up the video a little bit just until the install process is finished. Okay, so the basic installation is finished. I've got some options on the screen now. I don't want to look at the README. I don't want to view the changes. Let me just launch jEdit. Now jEdit should appear on my screen. I'll put away the help window and I'll just maximize the screen. So this is a basic bare bones installation of jEdit. Now what we need to do is give jEdit some extra functionality so that it will interact effectively with Topaz. We can do that by installing a series of plugins in jEdit. Now we could install those plugins one by one, but because there's a dozen or so that we need, it's going to be easier to copy them from the file that we downloaded a few seconds ago into the correct place for jEdit to find them. So where we're going to need to copy those files is to our own individual jEdit settings directory. And that's in different places on different computers, but you can always find it if you go to the utilities menu and look at the jEdit settings directory. On my computer, it's this particular directory here. So let's find that directory in my operating system. So if I open a new folder, I'm going to need to go to the C drive and the user folder, then my username. Then it was in a folder called app data, which appears here. Now on your computer, the app data folder may not be visible because it's hidden by default. So if it's hidden and it doesn't appear, click this little icon in the view tab so that you can see hidden items. Then if you go to app data, roaming, there should be a folder in there called jEdit. So we're going to need to go into what's called the jars folder of jEdit. Here we go. There's a folder in there called jars, and that folder is currently empty. Now that folder is where we can put the various plugins that we need. So if we go back to our jEdit setup folder, there was a subfolder in there called jars, which contains these various plugins. If I select them all and then I copy them, and I'll move them across, or I'll copy them across to the right place. In fact, I'll move them across. So they're now in that jars folder. So if I shut that folder down and I go back and I quit jEdit and then I reload jEdit, we should have all of that extra functionality installed for us. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is actually set jEdit up so that it can talk directly to Topaz. And the way we do that is by going to the macros menu. We go to run other macro, and then we want to look for the setup folder that we downloaded a few seconds ago. So that's going to be in C:temp. We go to that folder, go to the subfolder called files, and then click on impsetup.bsh and then open. Okay, so what that little script will now do for us, it'll ask us a series of questions. It says, have you already installed the various plugins so that jEdit will work properly with Topaz? That's what we've just done by copying the jars across. So we can click yes here. It asks us to select the main Topaz directory. So let's click on yes. We need to find where Topaz is on our computer. On my computer, it sits on C, and then in this folder here called Topaz A_version 7. So let me choose that folder. jEdit checks for us that we've got the right folder. So let's just click on yes to that. And then what's going to happen in the background is it'll take maybe about 20 or 30 seconds. In the background, jEdit will be copying various settings over from the folder that we downloaded from my website. It will also be copying over various example files that you might need to work with Topaz. So some of the input files that you'll need and some of the data sets that go with them. It may take, again, 20 or 30 seconds to copy everything over on your computer. Okay, it's done that now on my computer. I've got a few final questions to answer. Do I want to set up my keyboard to work in an appropriate way for Topaz? You can almost certainly click yes to that. Do you want to set up the tabs in jEdit to work well with Topaz? Click yes to that. And then it says setup for input file editing is finished. There's a little reminder here. Don't forget to set up color coding for Topaz. Go to plugins, editor scheme, scheme selector, and choose the imp scheme. Then restart jEdit. So I'll click on OK there. And I need to go to plugins, editor scheme, scheme selector, choose the imp scheme on the left, which is here, and click on apply. Close. So at that point, everything should be set up for jEdit to work effectively with Topaz. Just to be sure, I'm going to quit jEdit, and then I'll launch jEdit again. And if everything's working properly, your jEdit should look something like the screen in front of you here. You should have on the left a menu called the X insert menu. So if I click on that, you should have a series of Topaz menus set up on the left. Check everything works. Let's click on the Topaz version 7 menus. Let's come down to examples. Let's come down to Rietveld refinement, and let's select to do the Rietveld refinement of quartz. If I double click on quartz, if your jEdit has been set up properly, you should see some color coded text on the screen. Just for the video, I need my text files slightly larger. So if I go to utilities, global options, text area, and I'll want 16-point font so that it looks sensible on a YouTube video. Okay, so this is a basic input file. There should be some buttons at the top for interacting with Topaz. If I click on this TA with an arrow across it, it should save this input file and send it to Topaz. Click on the TA icon. That should actually launch Topaz for me. Topaz should appear on your computer. If I click on the red arrow, I should run the Rietveld refinement. You can see the Rietveld fit in the back here. There's a little button saying, do I want to update my input file with the results of that refinement? So I'll click on yes. And then if I switch back to jEdit, jEdit has automatically reloaded that file. And I've got the results of my Rietveld refinement in this jEdit file. So if you followed all the instructions, your jEdit should be set up like this. And what we'll do in later videos is we'll go through some of the mechanics of setting up Rietveld refinement files from scratch in jEdit. So I hope the video has been useful.